Hey, AfterBuzzers! Welcome to Supergirl AfterBuzz! It's episode 1 of season 2, The Adventures of Supergirl. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome back! We're in season 2! Woo!
So excited. I feel like yours was like level 10.
Yeah, you started a little low, but it's cool. We evened it out. As you know, I am your host, Tauri J. Miller, and joining me, Stephanie. Introduce yourself. Tell them where you can find you.
Hi, Stephanie Wenger. So glad to be back with you for another season of Supergirl. You can find me at Stephanie Wenger on Twitter, Instagram, and all over social media.
Awesome. You can find me at Tauri J, Taurijay. Man, there is so much to unpack in this episode.
So it's such a great start to the season.
Yeah.
Really kind of a reintroduction to Supergirl, of course, moved to the CW, and it definitely took on that CW tone.
Yeah. We're watching ourselves on our phone.
I'm gonna give that back to you.
And then, oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm gone now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good reintroduction. We have some new characters. We have a new setting. There's a lot of really fun things now that we're on the CW. Not to say that when it was on CBS it was not fun, but there are a lot of cool things that little nudges and winks that we had to the audience.
I agree with you, and I think that they did a really nice job of kind of transitioning from that CBS tone that is a little different from what you typically see in these superhero shows, and bringing this to the CW audience without it being a brand new show. It felt familiar and good and all those things that you want, but it didn't feel... It felt a little new, and there are some new characters. Superman, which is a very CW thing. I'm excited for more of that. And then also, I think the DEO is in a new facility because they, of course, moved their production up to Canada, so they needed to make some changes there as well, just logistically. So
yeah, I do love that wink and a nod from Alex, where she's like, I think I like it better than our old place. Audience, Am I right, guys?
Yeah, and you just know that that's a facility that they either created specifically for Supergirl, or it's a building up in Vancouver that they can use, and they were using something obviously on the lot here at Warner Brothers in Los Angeles, and they no longer have access to that. So what do? Create a new office that is again, so CW, so chic, so cool looking with the giant windows.
So speaking of Superman, we got our first look at this version of Superman. We've had so many different versions, especially on CW, or I guess what was the Warner Brothers network.
Yes.
So what was your first impression of Superman?
I had seen, stills of him over the summer, from while they were filming, and as soon as I saw him in the suit, I knew he was gonna be great. And tonight I thought he did a phenomenal job and is a really nice counterpart to Kara.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's really bubbly, which is really nice, and it felt like it had the same energy that we had when we had the Flash crossover last season, where you get to see Kara bouncing off of another super, and you get to see them working together, and they have the added bonus of being related, so they have that familial bond, which is nice.
Yeah, and I love the fact that he makes her think about her life-work Supergirl balance. And that was a big theme of tonight, is how do you manage everything in your life? Because you saw her struggle with that in season 1, and this season it feels like she might actually be able to do it a little bit better and figure it out, and she's working towards actually solving those problems, where it felt like last season she was continually running into this wall of how do I do everything and do it well?
Right. Yeah, and so the biggest casualty of her trying to balance her life is James. We see them try to go on their first date, and I know you were super rooting for them last year.
I love them. I just want her to be happy. I know, I think I said it last year too, and I felt like James would make her happy, and now you're seeing that she's kind of on this journey of self-discovery, which I'm sure we'll get into, but with James, I wanted more of why there was a change of heart there for her. Like, you kind of see her try to like fake excitement with her sister at the beginning of the episode. Like, I'm so excited to go on this date, and then he senses it because he knows her so well.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a full explanation of why it changed for her outside of like that she just wanted to focus on Supergirl.
Right. I mean, I felt like, and this is my own personal interpretation of it, that essentially their relationship was born in like rage and blood and fire. Every time that they were trying to be together, it was always in conflict and through strife. And so when your relationship has a foundation of like, I guess, drama, when you're in the normal times, that's when you like your real feelings start to come out, and you might not necessarily feel the same.
That's fair. I totally get that. And I think especially when you're young, sometimes that like chase is the most interesting part. And I feel like maybe for them, and this was something that I thought about, maybe it is about the chase, like all the time. He was taken, she was busy like managing this new life that she had, and how do you have both of those things and have it all? And they were chasing each other in a lot of last season, and now it was like, wait, we're gonna be a couple, we're gonna have normal date nights, we're gonna watch the news together, and maybe that's not an exciting relationship for her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, as a super person, like, what does constitute an exciting relationship? When you're battling baddies all day, you can fly. Like, what exactly is it that you're looking to have completed by another person?
I mean, it's a hard question to answer because clearly not Supergirl, but I think my instinct would be to say that if I had superpowers, I guess, I would want a normal relationship. I would want that like person who would watch Netflix with me.
Right.
But maybe that's not exciting, which brings me to a question of, do you think she's going to end up dating somebody with powers?
Well, I mean, I think because of knowledge of story and how TV works, of course she's gonna. I think that she's definitely gonna end up with the guy in the pod, which we'll get to, but which, I mean, hasn't even really been explained yet. But I think that is why they had to break them up, is to make way for her to be with this new guy.
And so do you think it's the end of the story for her and James, or will she eventually circle back?
I think it's the end of the story for them.
See, I don't necessarily think it is. Like, they were like, we'll always be friends, but I could see them having her with the guy in the pod. I wish we had a better description of him at this point, but the guy in the pod for a while, and then like having this relationship of will they, won't they with James over the course of what I hope to be many seasons of this show.
Yeah.
And eventually it always being James, like coming back to James. Or maybe it still Win could. I don't think it's going to be Win though now. I think Win is out. But I mean, I want there to be somebody who she's been with from the get-go, that they have this like back and forth, and maybe she's with other people along the way, but she ends up with somebody she started with.
Yeah. All right. So basically you think that James is OTP. Like he's end game. He's the end all be all.
It's interesting because I don't necessarily, like, it's not necessarily James. I just want her to be with somebody who knew her from the start.
Oh, really?
So maybe it is James. I don't think it's Win anymore, but I can't think of another candidate for that. So I guess if I want it from the beginning, it's gonna be James.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, taking your argument, if I were to see her with anyone, especially someone from the beginning, I would want it to be Kat's son, because they had such good chemistry.
Well, that's her real life husband.
I know. So I want that to be a thing.
I know. I would love for him to come back. If you've been reading spoilers and trade publications this summer, Calista Flockhart is back in limited episodes this season. I don't think they've said exactly how many, but she's not there consistently, or will not be for filming. So I would love to see him take a role at Catco. And even if he's not dating Kara, it would be so fun to have him in the mix on this show.
Yeah. I think I'd enjoy that, especially because there would be that tension of her being interested in him if she is interested in him, and him having to be her boss in a way.
Yeah.
So that would be fun. So yeah, I dig it. I dig it.
Yes.
But circling back from Kat, she's really putting the pressure on Kara to find her calling, and she gave her 48 hours to really figure out what she wants to do, which is crazy. Like, until they started talking about how long it's been since Kara got her new office and things like that, I didn't even think about how much time had passed, but it had only been the night before since we left off last season.
Yeah, they picked right back up from where we were last season. I actually loved the scenes between Kat and Kara. I thought it was so fun to have this, like, pressure, and I think that sometimes, at least in my own life, when you're in those pressurized, you have to make a choice, those are when you make the best choices, because there's some level of clarity that comes through in that, and I felt like that's what happened for Kara.
Yeah. Statistically speaking, the more freedom one has, the harder it is for people to make a choice because there are infinite paths for them. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, especially as a young adult, that's 100%. You have all these paths, and then you have to kind of, and if somebody, a mentor, if anybody kind of starts to question what you're doing and why, I think that that's when, like, again, clarity comes through. And that's what I felt like in this crazy show with all the superpowers and all this stuff. It felt like a very real, grounded moment in the midst of everything else that was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I really liked that at this point in the season, after all last season of Kat, trying to be more dominant and trying to be mentory towards Kara, we get to see them be kind of on equal footing now. I mean, Kat's still like the leader of her own company, but she sees Kara as not her assistant, but as someone who she can really like trust and respect.
Yeah, and I love that you're again seeing that side of Kat that is caring. When they pulled out the resume and it says reporter, she always knew who she had in front of her. Like, sometimes it felt like last season she was disrespectful of Kara, but in the end she really did know who she was and what she would be good at, and I think that that's going to be a really interesting thing to see if that's what she goes into, because I think sorry, we're gonna jump ahead here.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know, right? That I think she may end up in a different capacity at Catco because she's starting to realize her own path, and I think that that's also a really nice message, is that you don't have to be 22 to figure out your path. Like, she's still figuring it out at, I don't know how old she's supposed to be on the show.
35.
35.
She's 35.
Yeah. But it's really like a nice message that she's still figuring out who she is as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's something that you never stop trying to find. And I like that it ended up being a reporter, mostly because it's a nice way of paying like homage to her cousin, because they definitely have the same type of sensibilities, and they both have the same sense of justice, which I think is why it fits them both.
I agree with you, and I also think it sets up the ability to have them be together a lot more, because if you have her still being an assistant, he's off being a reporter, there's not a lot of space for them to play as Clark and Kara.
Yeah.
Where by having them both as reporters, they can either be competing for a story or they can be working together for something. It's like, it gives a lot of it's a playground for them in journalism.
Yeah. I would love an episode of just them trying to solve like a journalistic mystery together. No Superman, no Supergirl, just Clark and Kara being sleuths, figuring something out.
I feel like they would be the best investigative reporters, and like he already is, but I'm excited to see her kind of grow into this career.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love for him to also he seems to be somewhat mentoring her as Supergirl, or helping her, and it would be fun to see him kind of also mentor her as Kara and Clark.
Yeah, and we got a little bit of that midway through the episode where she's asking him how he balances everything, and he admits that like it's not easy for him. It's still something that he's trying to figure out, which I like that. I like that he wasn't just like, it's who I am, I'm Superman.
Well, I think these characters are inherently, people look at Supergirl or Superman and see a perfect, in your mind it's perfect, like
Yeah.
they're superhuman, they're all these things.
Yeah.
And it's nice that they've created these characters, and it goes across the CW on the Flash, Arrow, all these places that are flawed and have their own issues. And I saw that again tonight with Supergirl and Superman. They're each dealing with their own problems, and I hope that continues throughout the season.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I mean, one problem that keeps surfacing, which I'm glad that we're finally able to use, is the Luthors, one
Yeah.
would say. And through our sweet reporters, we get to meet Lena Luthor.
Yeah.
Lex's little sister, who apparently she's the only non-evil Luthor we'll ever meet.
This was my question. Do you believe that?
I think that there is reason to suspect. So there is a chance that she had the hit called on her just to garner respect or sympathy from the masses so that she could go through with her L Corp deal.
Right.
However, we haven't been shown any reason to not to trust her. Also, I really want to trust her because I want the Smallville dynamic where we have the the Kryptonian and the Luthor who's trying not to be evil. I liked that dynamic from that show,
Right.
and I want it again because I am greedy.
I mean, it's fair. Like, I get that. I think it would be really interesting to have her, like, I agree with you. I don't think she's 100% good, but I think it would be interesting if she was, only because then would she start helping Kara and Clark, and that would change the whole dynamic of things, and do you trust her, and they would have to go through this journey of like, do we trust her because she has access to everything that the Luthor family
Right.
does.
Yeah. I also, since we had a rich billionaire last season,
Right.
I definitely don't want another rich bad guy this season.
That's fair. Totally.
Also, I find her very pretty, and I want her to be a good person because that's what I want. I also want her to become my best friend.
Okay. We'll work on that
wife.
for you. And wife.
And wife, yes.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll work on that for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
I really
no
appreciate
worries.
it.
Yeah, it's only episode 1. We got time.
I'm just saying, any of you guys out there, if you want to put in a good word for me, I'm very fun and handsome. I'm very handsome for all you listeners out there, if in case you don't know.
He is very handsome. I can endorse that.
Yes, thank you. So spread the word. Let her know.
Yeah. All right. Make a flight up to Vancouver.
Yes, it's one of my favorite places.
So amazing. Okay, so I wanted to also ask you though, do you think she's going to be around all season? Is she going to be a big bad this season, or not so much?
I don't think she'll be a big bad, but I think that she will be around.
Mm-hmm.
I think she might be filling the same kind of role that we had with Lois's sister, whose name I am forgetting, whose name also starts with an L, because everyone's name starts with an L. But Lucy? Yes, Lucy Lane. I think she'll be fulfilling that role, being kind of a badass reflection of Kara, in that, like, she's a normal, but she's doing great things, and so I think she'll be someone that Kara can bounce off of. I want her and Kara to also be best friends, and I want there to be an episode where there's contention between Alex and her because they're trying to be the Kara's sister figure.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. I think that she really adds a nice element into the show, whether she's good or bad. Like, it's interesting to have that element, and we're getting into like Kryptonian or Kryptonite rather, and all of that. And I think that that's opening up all these doors that we kind of didn't have last season. I think we had Kryptonite maybe in correct me if I'm wrong, audience, 1 or 2 episodes. Like, it wasn't a huge element of the show last year.
It wasn't like a giant plot relevant thing, but like it happened in very pivotal moments. Like,
right.
you know, we had the kryptonite swords.
Right.
We had the room that had the kryptonite radiation.
Yeah,
but
there wasn't like a ton of it though. I feel like it happened at very kind of, yeah, you're right, opportune moments, big moments in the show.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're opening more doors with it by introducing the Luthor family.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it wasn't like in Superman Returns where they're like, we're gonna make a giant island out of kryptonite. It's gonna be so good. It was very much under, I guess, not undersold. I don't remember the word I'm looking for. It doesn't matter.
Okay. No, I think that it definitely felt like it was there. It was in the background. It was used at moments, but it wasn't this like huge element that was week after week. And I don't know that we want that, but like I'm excited to see a little bit more of it.
Yeah, and we got hints that it might play a really big role this season, especially with that contention between Superman and John. Can we call him John now? I don't want to call him Henshaw anymore because he's not Henshaw.
Yeah, I'll go with, why don't we refer to him as John?
Yeah.
At the very least.
John or JJ. I'll go with JJ.
Sure.
You know, John Jones, JJ.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really interesting because last year, or I guess last season, it felt like they were friends. Every time John would talk about Superman, he'd be like, yeah, you know, the big guy, he calls me this, and the big guy, he does that. And so I thought when they met each other, it would be this really big, friendly embrace between the two of them. But there's this resentment between the two of them because of the discovery of kryptonite.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well. I think it does set up, because otherwise he's like buddy-buddy with everybody. Like you have Kat like flirting with him. You have Wynn just like fawning over him. Like it's not very exciting, I think, as an audience member if everybody's just like super accepting, like, oh yeah, it's Superman and everything's great. And like, I think you have to have some dynamic of, like a disagreement in some capacity, and I think it's interesting that they made it with him.
Yeah, and I love that there's no clear person in the right, because Henshaw has a point, or JJ has a point, that there are people out there that you know, kryptonite affects and are a danger. We had a whole slew of Kryptonians last year that kryptonite came in very handy during their raid. Yeah. But Superman also makes a good point in that, like, if you have what is essentially a Kryptonian nuclear bomb in your pocket, like, who is that for if not for he and his cousin?
Right. It's true. It's going to be really interesting to see. I want the flashbacks of what happened between them previously, because I feel like we're getting a sense of it, and maybe we'll learn more about it in the episodes to come.
Yeah.
But I want the flashbacks of what went down.
Yeah. I mean, that would be good. What was it? Operation Emerald?
I believe so, yes.
So jumping back a little bit, what did you think of the assassin that was trying to kill Lena?
I mean, it felt to me like season 1. There was somebody attacking and then they were saving. I didn't get like a huge, maybe this was just my personal, like I was focused on other things tonight in the episode, but I didn't get a huge read on him as being like a phenomenal it was just like they needed this to move the plot along, and he seemed fine. What did you think?
I thought he was at first I thought he was like boilerplate, like he's just generic bad guy that they're using for this one task, until he started using the drones and smack talking with Superman, and I was like, this guy has a little bite. Like I started to like him at that point, so I'm which is a later point, but I'm glad that they're going to be reusing him because he seemed to have a few more layers to him.
Yeah, I'm interested to kind of have those layers peeled back, because I agree, towards the end of the episode, we did get beyond, I like your description of boilerplate. Like, I felt like, okay, this is like every bad guy we saw in season 1. It works for the show. They need to introduce everybody. In some ways, this is like pilot part 2 for them. Like, they had to move it over from CBS to the CW, and they had a lot to get done in this episode with that.
Yeah.
So for me, it worked, but I'm interested to peel back those layers and learn a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I agree. And I like the little reveal at the end with him becoming Metallo.
Yes.
Which was really fun. For those who don't know, Metallo is a Superman baddie. He has basically a metal skeleton. He's pretty much a robot, depending on the story. And he has a kryptonite heart that fuels his body. And so in the animated series, he thought he was human. It turns out he wasn't. He blamed Superman, and that was the beginning of his rage towards Superman, etc., etc., etc. So he's a reoccurring bad guy in the comics, and he's really, I guess, sadistic. So I look forward to seeing what they do with him on Supergirl.
Yeah, because the show, as we've talked about many times before, it has such a positive, fun vibe, and so when they bring in these deep, dark characters, it really does change the whole dynamic of the show in a lot of ways. So I'm interested to see, now that it's Supergirl and Superman fighting against him, that's gonna, to me, change the dynamic as well. What does that look like now that she has a partner in crime? Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine that it means that they're gonna have to step up the ante, because now that there are 2 supers, you can't just have a bunch of regular people running around being like, we're gonna rob a bank. Like, you really have to bring in a formidable bad guy, which is why I'm glad they're bringing in Cadmus, because that means that they can essentially do almost whatever they want. They can, create as many bad guys as they want. They can, run all these experiments to depower Superman. So, like, now the floodgate is open, and they can really bring in people or things that will, make Supergirl and Superman.
Yeah. I think it's going to be exciting to see on the CW, when you watch shows like The Flash and Arrow. I feel like there are, like, big bads that last an entire season, and a lot of last year on Supergirl, you had these bad guys that lasted an episode, 2 to 3 episodes maybe. They were not long arcs. Mm-hmm. And what I'm excited for is if you get more than one bad guy in there at a time, which it looks like that's the direction they're heading, that's a really exciting place to be, because you don't know, is this guy's arc going to be 5 episodes and this one's only going to last an episode. You have a lot more to play with. Your playground gets a whole lot larger at that point. So, because I felt like sometimes with the one bad and then you moved on to the next one, it felt like, okay, well, how is she going to save the day today? Right. And where there's a lot more dynamic you can go with.
Yeah. Like, it started really procedural, but it feels like they are definitely building out the mythos of the world. Now we have the Luthor stuff, we have the Cadmus, so there are now a myriad of bad guys that they're pulling in just in the pilot. Yeah. So I think, if not to predict, but like, I think that Cadmus could be the bad guy for the whole season, and then we get a slew of things that they're just sending out, like the way that they did the Flash for season 2, where Zoom was the overall bad guy, right. But he kept sending others in order to fight the Flash. I don't know if that's a spoiler.
I was gonna say spoiler on the Flash, guys. Sorry.
Is it though?
Sorry. We're all right.
They're all on the same network now. You're not caught.
It all happens. I mean, I think that we're in a really interesting place for Supergirl right now. I'm excited to see all of these villains come in, and I think it opens up a whole new world. And we should definitely mention before the end of the episode this amazing crossover that's going to happen in, I think, a few weeks. It's not too far into the season. Yeah. With, I think it's all of the CW superhero shows. So it's The Flash, Arrow,
Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl.
And Supergirl. So a massive crossover. I'm not sure how they're going to do it yet. It seems like a huge undertaking, but I've seen like paparazzi shots of them filming, so it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for it.
It should be amazing. A 4-day, I've never seen a TV event like this where they have a 4-day long crossover event, which I imagine it's going to be the most epic thing that has happened on any one of these shows.
I would imagine so as well, and I also always think about how much fun it would be for the actors. What an amazing time to get to be with all these different casts, and you're getting to mix together in such a fun way. And what a great thing for the CW too, to have you're doing night after night of like amazing content.
Yeah, I wonder if that will be the catalyst for Supergirl officially joining the universe, or I guess the Flareverse as people call it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, because we had Flash meet her kind of last year on her show, and Grant Gustin came down and did that for a minute. But yeah, she hasn't been in their wider universe yet.
Yeah, I mean, because she's technically still on another Earth. We haven't designated what number Earth she's on, but like there would have to be some kind of world-ending crisis, one might say, that would cause her to traverse the universes.
Right, because Flash has been to Earth too, I think in season 2, if I'm correct, if I'm remembering properly. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they bring all of these. There's time differences, there's like dimension differences, and how do you bring everybody all together? So you're right, it's going to be a giant, like, multi-Earth crisis.
Yes, one could say a crisis on infinite Earths. Oh. One could say.
Such a nerdy and amazing joke. Sorry, guys. Oh, well. All right, we're good. Yeah, I'm really excited for that and to see what that looks like. Because, again, I cannot think of another TV event that was like that. Because you used to have, like, One Tree Hill would, like, cross over with something else on the CW, but it wasn't this massive.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, man. I feel like before we leave, we have to talk a little bit about what we think the pod is. So we know it's a Kryptonian, or we believe it's a Kryptonian.
Right.
And it's funny, I just realized that we got the hint to Metallo before we had gotten Metallo, and that Superman was like, have you scanned for a metallic core? Ha 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 ha! Why would that be in there? Funny. But anyways, so we have this character who was in a timeless region and finally crashed to Earth, as far as we know.
Right. Yeah, this is something that I need to do more research, I feel like, on the backstory of these things, because I don't know enough about the Kryptonian pods and what that could be. My question for you, and I feel like you're the expert on this, is okay, so we kind of predicted earlier in the show that this could be a new love interest for Kara.
Yeah.
If he's from a Kryptonian pod, though, won't that be a big problem for her?
No, because not everyone on Krypton is related, if that's what your question was.
No, I felt like he could pose a danger to her.
Oh, I mean, yes, I guess that's true. But she could just woo him into being a good person. Because that's how love works, right?
Right, yeah.
Sending positive messages here on AfterBuzz TV. No, it could be a problem, but like, the first season, all the Kryptonians were an issue because they were prisoners.
Okay.
Whereas it seems like this guy was just shot out the same way that she was. I mean, there's also...
So could they have a previous... Like, she doesn't recognize him. That's pretty clear from the episode.
Yeah.
But could they have some, like, history together previously?
Potentially. Like, there's a chance that he could wake up and be like, "Hey, you're Kara. You remember me from 3rd grade?"
That would be actually really interesting. That would be like an interesting turn. Not quite that, but just like having some story that like maybe they have brief recollections, like something where they have to like figure out their past or how they're connected.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. I for a second I thought maybe what with all the weird time rifty stuff that's going on in the greater multiverse, that he could have been a younger version of Kal-El.
Yeah.
However, like I feel like Superman would have been like, "Hey, that kid looks like me." But he was unrecognizable to them both.
I definitely, yeah, like I think I turned to you and I definitely thought about it all the episode, like who could this be that we've already seen, but it seemed like nobody was identifying him in any way that like they recognized him. So I have to believe that this is a new character that we're about to figure out more about, because we kind of get this like very brief introduction to him tonight.
Right. I mean, I feel like the internet as a whole believes it to be he's going to end up being like Connor Kent, which would mean that he can't be a love interest for Kara, mostly because Connor is a clone of Superman, and he's known as Superboy. He's a clone of Superman mixed with Lex's DNA.
Yeah, okay, so no,
not at all.
Not a love interest then.
No.
But I kind of still want him to be a love interest for her. Sorry, internet.
Clones be damned.
Yeah, clones, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that sounds really interesting too. I'm interested to see what happens with this character. Also interested to see kind of. It seems like right now they've set up this thing where there's a lot happening for Supergirl and what's happening in this pod, and then also kind of what's happening on Kara's personal life and her career. And I think that that's something the show's always done really well, but it seems like they're really going to build it out this season.
Yeah. So are there any other pieces that you feel like we didn't cover? I know that the one thing that I wanted to hit on real quick was that Wynn is officially part of the DEO, which is really nice.
Yes. Okay, can we talk about, I mean, maybe I missed this again at the beginning of the episode. How did that all go down? Was he just decided to, like, join up? Because I thought that was, like, a relatively secretive society, maybe, or like, I don't know, organization.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, and I've joined too. And I guess like he's friends with all of them. It makes sense from like that standpoint.
Yeah.
But it was just like, oh, and now you're working there. So that made me wonder though, in terms of just logistics on the show, if we're gonna see less of Catco. Because she's becoming a reporter, and they mentioned something in the episode, like she was like, oh, I work for Catco magazine, and they were like, oh, that's not real reporting. So I wonder if she's gonna move organizations.
Yeah. I mean, I would say last season around the end, Wynn started helping them out more with like technical things and trying to like crack codes and stuff. So I think that was his window, and then he started having his like try out this episode, which they finally solidified it when he figured out the whole airplane Lena's the target thing. Yeah. But I think that you made a good point in that there is now less reason to go back to Catco, and that makes sense. If Calista Flockhart isn't going to be there as much, then they're just going to have Kara out in the field and in the DEO a lot more. She doesn't really need to report back as much.
And can I just make, again, a plea that it would be so great to have Kara's real-life husband, and I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on the actor's name, but I would love to see him back. I think they had some of the best chemistry. We talked about it earlier in the episode.
Yeah, I agree. So while you guys are talking about, or spreading the word about me and my new wife, Lena Luthor, make sure to tell everyone that we also want Alex, what is Kat's last name?
Cat.
Grant. Alex Grant back.
Yeah.
We want Kat's son back.
Yes.
So That's your homework, everyone. Tauri's wife, Kat's son back.
Guys, we are really on top of it. We are really asking a lot of you, so.
I know. It's just as simple as a tweet.
We also love to hear from you, so just tweet at us your thoughts and opinions, too.
Yes. And while you're at it, just to add one more thing to your slate. I will say that it's great to be back.
Yeah.
And it's great to be talking about Supergirl again. We know it's been a while, and we thanked you at the end of this season, and we're going to thank you again for listening and watching and, going on iTunes and downloading us every week last season and hopefully every week this season. If you love what we're doing, make sure to go on iTunes and give us a rating, leave a comment, because it helps our supervisors and our producers know that you love what we're doing and know that, you want more shows just like this. It helps us keep the light on, gets great sponsors, things like that. So just go on and give us 5 stars if you love what we're doing, 4 stars if you think we can improve, and then leave a comment about how much you love us. Yep, those things make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And we all, I know you and I are big on reading the comments every week, so we'll respond back to and say hi and tweet at us and definitely iTunes too.
Yeah. Sweet. So I feel like it's a good time to start moving into predictions.
I agree.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
The booth clearly wanted us to move into predictions too.
It was ready. So good.
On it.
Ooh.
Love it.
So do you have anything that you think is really... what do you think is going to happen through the season, if not in the next episode?
So I know we've talked a lot about predictions throughout the course of this episode,
right.
But for me, I'm really excited about about Kara figuring out her path, and I think that's going to be a really exciting element of the show, and I think ultimately Supergirl is still going to get in the way. That double life is still going to get in the way of her figuring out. It's going to take longer than maybe it typically would because she's still going to be running off for everything. And there's going to be, now we've talked about it, so many villains in her world that she's going to have to kind of protect that personal or the Kara life that she has when she has so much to do as Supergirl.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, what about you?
I most of my predictions are based in Cadmus. We had a little bit of Cadmus last season, and now I think that I like that they're bringing them in that they bring another perspective. And that perspective is not all superhumans are good people, and so that brings a deeper discussion about the effect that the supers are having in this world, which I really enjoy. So, I'm predicting that, I think I said that they're going to be the big bad. I think that at some point, Superman is going to get taken out, mostly because of all the kryptonite talk. I think that I don't think he's going to die, because I don't think they would do that.
No.
But he definitely is going to get taken out of commission for some reason or another, just so we can allow Kara to shine again. I worry about Superman taking her sheen.
I think I agree with that as well. I think that it's going to be interesting by having 2 of them in play, if you want to put it that way. You're able to have her be knocked down for an episode and he's it gives a whole dynamic that they didn't have last year, because you always knew that Supergirl had to be back next week. There was no way that she was gonna really be out of anything, and by having both of them, you have the ability to be injured, quote unquote, or just there's a little more play there, and I think that's really exciting. And also, again, to have these multi-episode arcs for big bads rather than a procedural show. I'm really excited about the changes that the CW is making. I think it's gonna be a really great season.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. We look forward to talking to you every week, and in between, from week to week. You can catch us on all the social medias. Stephanie Wenger, where can they find you?
At Stephanie Wenger, keeping it easy for you guys.
Oh, nice. And you can find me at Tauri J. It's TauriJay. Join us next week. We're going to have a full panel. It's going to be so good. Some familiar faces and some new ones. So stay tuned. Keep on coming back.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.